show interest.
Good evening. This is the Town of Eastchester Planning Board meeting of April 24th, 2025. If everyone rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're just going to take attendance. Mr. Phil Nemisak,
Present.
Lauren Goodrich,
Present.
Jim Bonanno is here, Joe Rubino will not be here tonight, and Michael Fortuno.
Present.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's just approve some of the meeting minutes. There's just one. So, Mr. Nemisak sent comments about the March 27th minutes. So I make a motion to approve the minutes for March 27th Planning Board meeting, subject to the clarifications noted in Phil's email dated 4/23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see. The following items have been adjourned and will not be heard tonight. Application 2518, 210 Marbledale Road subdivision, and application 2315, as well as Sal's Market and Pizzeria, 751 White Plains Road. These have been adjourned to the May 22nd meeting. And then application 25-13, Great Day Family Care, Child Care at 32 Road has been withdrawn, so we will not be considering a resolution, which we talked about at the last meeting. The applications we are reviewing in this order are Beach Street is 2302, and then we're going to talk about Locust Avenue, which is 2441, and then, and then 11 Maple Avenue. And then there's just a few administrative things about the Summit Street subdivision, and there's one other application, right, that we're going to talk about?
Yep, that's it.
That was it? Okay, good. So the first application is 203 Beach Street.
Good evening, members of the board. Dan Collins, Hudson Engineering. Since we were last here, we've been coordinating with Kellard's office, putting everything together. I think at this point we've addressed all their outstanding conditions and comments, and we're ready to move forward with hopefully getting approval, closing the public hearing, and get everything tied up.
Are there any areas where you and Kellard Sessions and Mr. Bolander in particular have a difference of opinion at this point?
We worked through things. There was a few things that we had to add. There was going to be a lot of information that was on the plat originally, so we prepared a separate set of smaller drawings that had that additional information on it. That's mostly stormwater design, some more plantings and everything, so that it didn't bog down the actual plat that's going to get sent to the county. So it kept it a little cleaner.
Okay,
and
but that's a procedural thing. That's not
Yes,
really a
yeah,
substantive
yeah.
thing.
Yes.
Substantively, are there any material differences?
No. Everything's really the same. Yeah.
Sure. So to your approval, there's nothing really that's open, I guess, Mr. Bollinger? We're good. All right.
Why don't
Want to
you-
put him
yeah.
at the mic, just to
Oh, yeah, sure.
the record.
Looks like when we make him say his name over and over again. So
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted you to say yes. But we're there now, so.
Rick Bolander, KSCJ. As Mr. Collins mentioned, yes, a lot of the remaining items were just information to be included on the plat. We understood that the plat got quite busy with that information, so we requested that they prepare an integrated plot plan showing what's the remaining information, and that was provided to our satisfaction. All the stormwater we are comfortable with, all comments. The remaining items on our final memo we have no problem if those were included as resolution items. It's health department approval, Veolia approval, and we understand that that could take some time, but we don't see any reason why that would hold up the approval of the plat.
Okay. So you're referencing the 6 conditions in the memo dated April 23rd, 2025. So those are the conditions that you said you'd be okay with. So we will agree with you. So cool. So then, thank you. So then it's back to us. This is an open public hearing, so if there's any comments from the public about this application, now's the time. Good, then we're ready to move forward. Thank you. So then I make a motion to close the public hearing on this application, 2302, 203 Beach Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That being done, oh, right. Let's see. Right, so I guess I should just say that there is a draft resolution for this, was prepared before this meeting, has been posted on the town's website. It's available in the meeting room. if you
Right
wanna
in the back
review
if
it.
anybody wants to see it.
Okay. And then there's, the way you explained it to me, there's 3 steps to this. There's a conditional, what are the other 2 steps? A final,
Sure,
and what's in
so,
between?
right, so this is a major subdivision under our zoning law, and so it has various parts. So right now, we're considering a resolution of conditional preliminary subdivision approval. And as you'll see in the resolution that was prepared, there are several conditions that have to be satisfied before the applicant makes an application for final plat approval. Once they satisfy those conditions, they'll come back before the board, and basically you'll review the plans versus this resolution to make sure that the changes have been made, there are no other material changes. Then it goes to conditional final approval, and then after that, the applicant will comply with any conditions you have at that time, but that are required to be satisfied before the chairman signs the plat. Once those conditions are satisfied, the chairman will sign the plat, and then the plat can be filed in the county clerk's office. So this is the first major step in the review process, and then we still have those 2 other steps.
Okay, so we're going to adopt a resolution. We don't have to read this whole
Right,
resolution.
so it was
It's-
posted on the website, it's available here if
Correct,
anybody
and-
wants to see it. So if you wanted to, you could waive the reading of the resolution and adopt it as drafted. You know, one change I did want to just note, in the draft that was circulated at the last meeting, we had talked about a pre-construction meeting and management plan, and that was originally indicated in the conditions for before the chairman signs the plat, but as Mr. Bollinger pointed out, it's probably more appropriate in the general ongoing conditions after the plat is filed. So it's just been moved to that section, the text is the same.
Okay. And that was the revision between the 2 drafts?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So after we approve the conditional preliminary, they come back with cleaned up drawings, or?
Correct,
And then
right.
we approve the next one that you described?
Right.
Conditional final?
That's right, yeah.
Same thing?
It's similar, so it'll be changes to the plat that we have identified here, and then after the conditional final stage, they'll go and get health department approval to get the sign off from the utilities and any other conditions that are required before the plat can be signed.
Right.
And then after that next step, it doesn't come back to the board, it only goes back to the chairman for your signature.
Got
Yeah.
it. So we'll see you next month then. Cool. So since we all understand that, I'm now going to make a motion to approve the resolution of conditional preliminary plat approval for application 2302, 203 Beach Street, 104 and 108 Highland Avenue subdivision, prepared for this meeting, and to waive a reading of this resolution.
Yes, and that would be the resolution entitled conditional, excuse me, conditional preliminary subdivision approval.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Great.
Thank you so much.
Moving forward. Thank you. The next application is 32 Locust Avenue, application 24-41.
Today is the NFL draft, which always falls on a planning board meeting day, and it's the one day of hope for Jet fans like myself, so I'm
What time
hoping
does
to
it
get out
start?
of here by 8 o'clock.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Benedict Salinitro. I'm a civil engineer in Mamaroneck, New York. I was here before this board last month in the hopes of providing some additional information that was requested by your consulting engineer. We did that. We revised the plans, and in accordance with, I guess, the practice, yesterday we got a much more lengthier memo. I'm not sure who the author is, but from your consultant. So, kind of stuck in the mud now. Maybe he can talk, because I tried calling him a few times. I don't get a return call. So just for the record, you know, professional courtesy would be nice. So maybe, Rick, you can come up here and tell him what you want me to do.
Hold on, before you go there, do you want it, nothing's really changed on the plan, or?
Yeah, we've answered, we attempted to answer all of the outstanding comments from the last memorandum. So we've got a few more curveballs that came in yesterday's memo. He can explain it. Number one, we're designing to a 100-year storm based upon the lot coverage that is being proposed for the home, 1,900 some odd square feet. They want me to design a 100-year for 2,500 square feet, kind of sort of moving that bar a little bit higher to almost a 500-year storm. Then, you know, we're talking about hydraulics, having it release. There is no storm drain system, no public storm drain system nearby. And the big bugaboo that came in was this applicant has to do a public improvement, which is unheard of. I've been a practicing municipal engineer for almost 40 years. I've seen a lot of things. This is not a typical subdivision where it's an empty parcel. So it's a single-family home, and it's not a subdivision where a road is being created or anything like that. So public utility extensions or creations of public utilities are generally reserved for maybe an 11-lot subdivision you just approved preliminarily tonight. But I just, you know, I'm at my wit's end. I think what happened was we had the neighbor to the right who was belly aching 2 months ago and trying to convince this body that he had an easement, which he didn't have.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, well, you know, now I'm started. Yeah. So, happy belated Easter to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, we did our due diligence. We contacted your consultant, and we set up an appointment. We did on-site investigations. We dug holes. They didn't show up until after we left, which is fine. I updated your consultant as to what we did, what we found. And what we found was a smoking gun that has nothing to do with this property. Rather, it has a negative impact to the neighbors who were complaining. Because what they have is a storm drain system tied into the sanitary sewer running through this land. We don't need it. We don't have any use for it. It doesn't provide us any benefit, but it's there. So that's Pandora's box that decided to get opened, and here we are. So there is a pipe on the property that conveys stormwater from the neighbor to the left. It doesn't do anything for this land. It's been vacant, as it's been made on the record. It's been vacant for existence. And it traverses through to the neighbor to the right, who probably tie into it as well, and then it goes out to the sewer on Gaylord. Okay, well, that's a clear violation of the Westchester County Sewer Act. I disclosed this as a professional to your professional. I'm like, that's a secondary item. You know, the neighbor said that he had a storm drain connected to our system or something. We didn't find it, and it's been unproven. So what we decided to do, as far as the development of this land, is move all of our stormwater detention to the front, elevate that, because the back, you know, basically, as you understand the way the property runs, it runs from front to back. So the back is the fishbowl, and the neighbors that are contiguous to it, you know, they drain into it, and it collects a lot of water, and it dissipates whenever it decides to dissipate. So we're designing a system to hold the water in in containers, or right now it's Cultex, but I think after this review memo, it'll probably be pipes, you know, storage pipes that will have a release point. That release point is going to go back on the property. Your consultant wants it to go someplace that we don't have an opportunity for it to go. So the objective of this land development application is to provide no less, no worse than what it is today. If I can prove mathematically and otherwise that this development of this land will not have an adverse impact any worse than what it is today, that's what your code asks me to do. So,
Yeah, while complying with the 100-year storm requirement.
well, the 100-year
Yeah,
storm
yeah,
and all
which
that.
may be
yeah.
more.
So
yeah.
obviously, it's frustrating as an engineer, and I'm a municipal engineer. So like I said, I've worked for, and I'm currently a planning engineer for another municipality, and they would laugh at this because it's really I don't know who the author is. It's a far stretch. This is not how. I'm a practical guy, and I use that experience and knowledge to make things work. I don't like to put up roadblocks. And I see a lot of roadblocks here, not sure why, because 2 months ago, the same consulting firm came up here and had told this body that you could do a conditional approval. It wasn't until the neighbor to the right came up and started spewing all these non-factual things, and I think, Mr. Tedesco, you agreed. If you don't have an easement in writing or anything, you don't have anything. So we're at the point where we've resolved the open issue, open question that there's no easement. We did our due diligence and did testing, and we determined where the water table is. So the rear yard is not conducive for filtration practices. So we're going to hold everything up front. We're going to build a small retaining wall halfway around the property, keep that grade level to Locust Avenue, and then we'll develop a system that can contain that water and have a slow release back to the backyard. So in the 100-year storm, what we see today as a vacant land, we will see tomorrow with the house on it. We're not going to make an improvement. We're not going to make it worse. So if there's a public improvement aspect to it or component to this application, which we haven't proposed, then the town of Eastchester should do that. Not this applicant. It's a vacant land. It's been vacant forever. The neighbors have had water problem forever. We would work with the neighbors to see if they want to come through this land via an easement, go out to the neighbor's property, and then convey that stormwater. Because right now there's a violation. Town of Eastchester can go in there to the sewer and close that pipe. If they were to choose to do that, which the law says you need to, then the neighbors would really have a problem because their water would go nowhere. So even if I install, or the applicant here at 30 Locust installs a storm drain on front of 30 Locust, it does nothing for the complaining neighbors at all. Doesn't do anything for us either, to be very honest with you. So that's my commentary.
So can I just understand, it seems like you've identified two issues. One is the pipe that traverses the property. That's stormwater going to sanitary
That's correct.
for your property. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. The second one is, what do we do with the water? You're holding it, and you propose that it goes back into
Yeah.
ground of the
So,
existing.
if I may walk up there, do I need to take this mic with me?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yes, I do. So the quadrant of land, so right now this is the vacant land.
Right.
And what we propose to do in this third iteration is to, this area in front, to raise the elevation here. This is a retaining wall, the dark line is a retaining wall, and put in, as you can see, what's the number here?
That's fine, we get it.
It's the whole front yard. It's a swimming pool on
it's
the
a
ground.
lot of water, sure.
Well, that's not enough for your consultant. They want more. So, you know, and if we keep going down this path, now we have an impractical solution. So the idea was to collect the water here and have smaller diameter pipes, 1.5 inch, 1 inch pipes, that would allow these to seep out and then recollect in the backyard. It's as simple as that. There's no mechanical system in the backyard that we're proposing. This is the dotted line, the mystery line that we uncovered, but it's been there for 100 years, maybe more. But the fantastic part about it is right here, let me just go, since I had to put the names of the residents. So the resident at number 36 Locust Avenue, Zaki Gizzo, they have a driveway that slopes down from this street here, which is, it's important to note because there's it's a question of functionality. And that's why I wanted to brainstorm and made the phone calls that nobody called me back. But, so this is Bell Road that drains down to 36, okay? There's a drain there. So this property collects all of the road runoff. And he's been complaining, and he's been having a significant issue with runoff from the Bell Road, comes through his property. So this Bell Road land slopes into his. He's got a drain inlet there. That drain inlet goes right to the sewer, okay? So if that violation is corrected, that means the pipe gets removed. That means this whole area just floods to high heaven. We don't want that, but the pipe is there. We just identified it. We didn't build it.
If that area floods to high heaven, so will your plot, right?
Yeah, so you have a big problem here.
Yeah.
You have a system that somebody installed. There's no grandfathering of a,
It's not legal. to
capital
begin with.
punishment is
Yeah.
capital punishment. This is a bad thing. But the obvious solution is that we know that the water collects here on 36. We know that there's a pipe that traverses 3032, and we know that 24 was complaining about thinking that he had a connection. He does. He probably has a connection to the same sewer.
Yeah.
So
on
if-
his own property.
On
probably.
his, yeah. Or maybe, I don't know exactly. This has to be inspected. It is comment number 23 on your consultant's thing to get this inspected. So we wanted to do is, since this is an aside to the application, this is a newfound element that has nothing to do with the construction of this home, because the home construction is removed from this area. So even if there was an opportunity to engage in a conversation between private property owners and have the conversation with the town of Eastchester to tie in to the storm drain down here, the storm drain starts here. So that makes the most sense. So now you have neighbors who would benefit from that. Now you, rather than go to the sewer, you go to the storm drain. So being up here, the elevation does nothing for nobody. So this has to get eliminated. But we don't have to grant anything. So it seems like the memo, and you could read for yourself, there, it's like, I want you to design to 2,500 square feet. I want you to design to 100-year. I want you to have a release, and I want you to put a public storm system in and tie into one of these streets. Really? That's not the way it's going to happen, because there's no fundamental rationale for that to happen that way. We need to, when I say we, collective property owners need to get together and decide on a routing for the storm drain. Here's the funny part about that. We have to design to the 100, 500-year storm, whatever, and put in a pipe. These folks who pre-exist are allowed to what? Just tie in without any detention? We don't know. The answer to that question is still unknown. This application before this body is for a construction of a single-family dwelling. That's all it's for. If we, this could have been found anytime. Could have been found another 100 years from now. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the village or the town did a SSES study, sanitary sewer evaluation survey, that probably smoke tested this and said, it's got to be there. It's got to be, this is an anomaly that should have been corrected by now. And it's, again, it's all it's doing is traversing the land. It's not helping the land, and it's not benefiting the property.
And that's just traversing your property.
That's correct. So
You're not deriving any direct benefit
Nothing.
from that.
No.
You're deriving an indirect benefit, because what might otherwise spill over naturally onto your property is instead being drained from 36, I guess it is.
Well, I think this, again, water doesn't have a boundary limit. You have to look at topography, and the topography will tell you. So this topography tells you that all of these lands are inundated. So this is a relief. But what happens is that in the sanitary sewer manhole, this 6-inch pipe is at the invert, which is the bottom of the manhole, which means that it's not the primary flow. The primary flow is coming down here. So that's the runaway train. When it's flowing and other illicit connections are going through there, This water has no way out because it's at the invert. So what people are experiencing here, and the pipe, by the way, was clean. There was no obstructions that we could identify. What's happening here is that during a heavy rain event, because other people probably get some pumps going in and so forth, and there's excess water flow, this pipe doesn't flow too well because it's got this main, let's call this the transmission line, has to relieve itself. Once that does that, then this system starts to work. But it's clean water going into the sanitary sewer, which is a violation of the Westchester County Sewer Act. So it has nothing to do with the house, by the way. I've just shared that with you.
Yeah.
So I think, and we were going to wait till next month to answer the questions, but then when I saw the new question about this public utility, I had to come and say, did you guys know about this request?
So, just one more quick question, then we'll go to well, actually a couple of questions. So the idea that you have for retaining the water is to collect it there and then slowly release it on your own property and let it infiltrate. Is that the?
Yes, basically.
Okay.
So
We've never really had to, because the water table is so high, you're saying it's got no place to go.
well, the elevation of the water table in relationship to where the front yard was going to be is approximately almost 7 feet. So there is exfiltration in the front. The backyard, it's about 3 feet. Those test pits, our site examination revealed that the water table in the rear is about 3 feet deep. In the front, because the land is a couple of feet higher, it's that much greater. So, but as you know, I think as the conversation develops with the neighbors and discussion about, see, the town needs to violate somebody. That's what gets the ball rolling. You can't violate this applicant because we haven't done anything. So the town needs to violate, and it's always the point of beginning. So the point of origin of that pipe is why it was installed in the first instance, right? So it's 36's problem that's running through 32, 32.
Yeah, I understand the pipe. I'm asking more about the chambers.
That's all in the front of the property, which is 4
Right.
feet higher.
So why can't it just infiltrate in the front? Why does it have to go, why
Because
can't?
of the proximity to the house, and there's some guidance criteria in the stormwater manual regarding placing infiltration
So
system
you're too
in
close
fill.
to the house, 10 feet.
So we're
you said,
using
right.
fill, so that's basically going to be in fill. You have to have at least a 12-month experience on the soil's ability to absorb that water in order to design for that, for that volume. We would then go into just like a sealed system, a vessel, if you will, that would hold the water, and then it would have, fingers of smaller diameter pipes that would be like a release, almost like a dam, a spillway, same concept, hold the water back and let it trickle down. That trickle volume over a 24-hour period should equate to what would be there in an undeveloped scenario. That's the objective.
Okay, I asked because we've never really had to deal with a situation like that, so it's been rather simple.
Professionals know.
Yeah, okay, so there's also a bunch of other comments.
There are.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go over them with you.
We
think we're
can.
gonna-
I'd be more than happy to.
No, let's get our,
Are you ready to go for conditional approval? Because we can hash this out. We're doing.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see what he
Yeah,
says.
we're gonna-
If
we're
this
gonna
could be
see, yeah.
conditioned or not.
oh, he's on it, right.
But let me ask one further question. So
Please do.
I know you earlier mentioned about the water condition being no worse than.
Yeah. No net increase in the rate of flow.
Yeah, but with these retention, the Coltex, the retention system.
Yeah.
And designed for the 100-year storm, would you make the statement that the water retention on the property, as you're proposing to build it, actually alleviates or makes the condition better than it would be? Because I would think if you're building for a 100-year storm, you're not getting a 100-year storm by definition, well, not till every
Yeah,
100
I think
years.
one of the
Yeah.
comments was the hydraulics about it. So there's a hydraulic analysis that has to be determined that the outlet of the chambers, be it a pipe system or whatever, that outlet has to safeguard the rate of flow so that it doesn't damage or create a problem to the neighbors. So we still have to chug some, go through some numbers and see what comes out
Yeah.
of that.
But currently, you
calculation.
have a property that, I think you said in the back, you hit water at 3 feet, right?
Yeah, and all the properties there have the
Yeah.
same water table. It's not
Yeah.
just here, at the lowest point. So it's a collection basin. So when water falls from the sky, it's God's water, it's nobody else's water. So it falls from the sky onto the land, there's a rate of runoff. There's a flow characteristic that goes from, depending on the type of surface, whether it's asphalt, it's different curve number, et cetera. So the water collects on these backyards, and primarily here on 3032, it sits there, but then it dissipates. I suspect that dissipation is a combination of two things. One, or three: evaporation, some soil absorption, and obviously, maybe some open joints in that illicit pipe that exists there. It's very possible. So it's all of those above. But this is a buildable lot. It's zoning compliant. The proposed house is zoning compliant. We're trying to solve for the water. Your code says what we need to do. We'll try to do that. And there's also a provision in the code, even in the New York State manual, where if site conditions predicate that they are not suitable for these, design retention storms, other things, green practices can be utilized too. So I would love to engage in best management practices conversation with your consultant to get to a solution that works. I'd also like to engage with the neighbors to let them know we collectively have an issue here, which is in a side note. So I'm doing my best. So
That being the pipe. The neighbors
That
are
being
only
the pipe.
involved in the pipe.
So the beauty of how things are situated, homes in the backyard, the beauty of that is that there's a clear opening that's available to go from where it starts now across the backyard right out to the street without interfering with homes or anything else like that. We would even contemplate installing within our limits of the property a pipe so that it's there, and then on either side it can get extended. Just so, because the property's going to be under construction, makes a lot of sense to do it now. It's one of the things that I, recommended to the client is let's put a pipe. It'll ultimately be an easement. It's a private easement, not between the town. It'll be a private easement between 36 to 32, and then from 32, they would have to get an easement from 28. So it's a trickle-down effect. So the grant of easement is for each adjoining neighbor.
But connecting to storm, not sewer.
Connecting to the storm. There is a storm sewer out there. Yes, there is a storm sewer. So there is when the town has to grant permission because there is a minor, when I say minor, it's across the street. So there is a public utility extension that would happen by the installation of a catch basin on our side of the street and then connect to the existing catch basin across the street. So there's a solution there, and it's a practical solution, as we know, where the dollar's coming from.
So, okay, let's chat a little bit and we'll figure out what to do next. Thank you for the education.
Yes, and stand by.
Yeah, here we
I
go.
suspect we'll have more questions.
So, Mr. Bolender, can we just go through your memo point by point? Because in my mind right now, listening, there's two main things. So we just go through and you say, okay, what should we be paying attention to? It'll be best if we just flip through and
Sure.
you highlight what you believe is worth discussing, and what we can just say, okay, we'll let it go.
You got it. And obviously, as Mr. Salonico described, there's water problems. It's surface water problems. There's lack of percolation in that area. Obviously, groundwater issues, which forced what was first proposed as an infiltration system that would allow water to percolate into the ground is now a detention system now in the front of the property. And just order of magnitude here. So, and there was a discrepancy on the plans about the impervious coverage we looked at. In the stormwater calculations, it was about 1,923 square feet, but in the area breakdown is about 2,300 square feet. So we weren't sure what was correct, so that prompted the 2,500, and just to account for any further improvements, walkways or whatnot. We understand it's a small lot, so that's why that's what sparked that comment. So if you take 2,500 square feet and you times that by the 100-year storm rainfall event, which is about 9 inches, you have about 2,000 cubic yards of water that you have to deal with. The units proposed on the plans, if assumed to have 6 inches of stone around them, handle about 80 cubic feet of rainwater. So the system as proposed in the plans would become inundated relatively quickly because of the lack of infiltration, and obviously considering the tightness of the site. So we were just looking for a feasible outlet for that. And as was described, there's water problems in the backyard. So outletting to the backyard of this property, we feel would adversely affect the neighbors, and that's what we're trying not to do, and just protect the neighbors from any water problems. There was actually another comment about, we understand there's proposed retaining walls. On one of the details, there's a perforated pipe behind that retaining wall. We just asked just to show that outlet so we can account for that water, and there was weep holes in the other type of retaining wall that was proposed directed at the neighboring property, and that retaining wall was essentially on the property line. We're not comfortable with that because of, we understand there's water issues on this property, so directing those weep holes directly at the neighbors, we're not comfortable with, in the stormwater standpoint.
So, just an aside, so how do you collect the water that builds up behind the wall if you don't weep it somewhere? You just let it infiltrate, just in general, at a retaining wall?
It would, yes.
So it stays on the
Yes, you would have to keep it on your property, and you could look at directing it towards the underground system.
And it goes into underground system, not weep. Okay.
So obviously going back to stormwater here, so what we're looking for is, no, you don't want to adversely affect the neighboring properties. So you could use any kind of stormwater computer program, and you model the existing conditions. As a virgin site, as a bare site, grass, you get your peak flows. There's essentially a ridge, not a very large ridge, but a ridge that doesn't exactly bisect the site, but maybe 2/3 and 1/3. 1/3 goes to the back portion, 2/3 come to the front portion. So essentially you would have 2 design points that you analyze. So you figure out under existing conditions what the peak flows are at the back portion of the property and then also at the front portion of the property as a virgin site. And then you include now your improvements, all the impervious surfaces. And you do your analysis using those same design points, and you figure, okay, our peak flows for the 100-year storm were 2 CFS under existing conditions. We want to need to make sure that they're under 2 CFS under proposed conditions. So we haven't seen those calculations yet, so that's what we're looking for. And if those are provided and they check out, then that would make us a whole lot more comfortable with the stormwater design as of right now. We just need to see that on paper, is what we're asking for.
Where is that requested and which number?
Well, that would be,
Is that the hydrological routing?
that's exactly what that is, yes, correct.
I don't really know what that means. What does that mean?
Just what I described right
Yeah.
there. It's peak flows, and we don't require volumes, but it's those peak flows that we need to make sure, which essentially goes back to not adversely affecting neighboring properties. So as soon as we see that on paper, obviously we would review that and approve it if it all checks
So
out.
is that standard modeling of groundwater, what you just described? That's something that anyone should be able to do?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
This is unique because groundwater is so high, so it's a detention system, but I know many projects in this town. I've presented in front of this board on projects where.
So in that bold, in number 1, your response to bold, hydrological routing shall be provided for review. But then you also said the design shall demonstrate adequate mitigations of the 100-year storm event and include means for appropriate discharge to the town's sewer system.
It was,
What does that mean?
that was a suggestion because, again, the system as designed is undersized right now, so we need to account for that excess flow. And we weren't comfortable with that, outletting that to the back portion of the property because of the close proximity to the neighbors. So we suggested, okay, well, if you can't outlet it anywhere without adversely affecting the neighbors, then we suggest looking into connecting into the town's infrastructure.
Well, it specifically says storm drain, right?
Yeah.
Who pays for
Well, that's
that?
because you're not supposed to be able to go into the sanitary.
Yeah, no, well, right, so that means that
It has to be
implies that
storm,
you have to
yeah.
correct with that condition.
And isn't that, I mean, putting aside all that has to be done to get approval on that, but isn't that sort of the issue involving the neighbor at, 36?
Correct.
And
24, yes.
And 24, and just hypothetically, if this property could also drain into that, assuming everything took place, that would take care of a lot of things, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, now, and like the chairman, I profess my ignorance on these topics, so if this sounds like a kindergartner saying this, please forgive me, but I understand that the back part of the property may be lower. It certainly has, you have to dig a lot less to get to the groundwater there, the 3 feet. And I understand in part, it's because the property slopes to the back. So even without improving anything, your water would be moving towards the back, towards where the neighbors are. And if that's the case, wouldn't detaining any water in the front of the property potentially be an improvement?
It could be, and if that was the case, then they could easily show that in calculations, and we could review that and approve that, no problem.
Okay, so if you had that calculation and it demonstrated that point,
Yes.
that
maybe-
issue would be gone?
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Can I ask a question that I don't know if anyone else is thinking, but in a perfect world, if the new development tied into the existing pipe that flows into the sanitary that's not supposed to be there, but assuming that this house is built and can flow through that without disrupting the neighbor's property and building a new pipe that ties into the stormwater, if there's enough holding that slowly releases into that, could that be a solution?
From an engineering standpoint, they'd have to analyze the pipe, obviously camera the pipe, inspect it to make sure it's in good condition. But then that would be coordinated with the highway department and whatnot. It's their system, and that would be, just have to be coordinated with them.
Because is it not currently flowing into that?
It is, yes.
It is.
And
So-
I don't know firsthand, but that's what I've gathered from speaking with the highway department and with the applicant.
Just tap into the storm that's going into the existing sewer and put your runoff in there.
Wait, did I mishear that?
Right.
Is the current property tapping into that pipe? I understood that it wasn't.
I'm not.
Okay,
don't
I
think
thought
so.
you just said, I thought
No.
that, okay, I misinterpreted that. Okay, thank you.
Oh, so it's not currently running off into that storm, or excuse me, sanitary pipe then?
It's, as it looks on the topography of it, it looks like it kind of gathers in that backyard area, in what we're calling the well area, that 24,
Right.
the neighbor outlets into.
So where is all the water from the proposed site running off into? I'm sorry, it's not going into that drain that goes into this, ties into the sanitary, or?
Now it's coming into a system because, so you're going from grass,
Right.
which infiltrates X amount of water. Now you go into impervious area surfaces that don't infiltrate anything. So there's an increase in volume and just amount of runoff. So that's what, you collect that now from the roof, from the driveway, any impervious surface, and you bring that into your system. That system holds it back, slowly releases it, so then you're getting your reduction in peak flows to the design point either in the back, in the front, wherever.
Yeah,
But
so,
that's the proposed. The existing is nothing, right?
Yep.
Right, the existing is
okay,
zero.
okay.
Right, just
So it would put it would put additional water into that, if
Into that
you tied
system,
into it.
correct.
Okay, thank you, understood.
And the 6-inch, and it might be big enough to handle that, but we
Because
just,
it's slowly putting it into there, so
Yes.
it could handle it.
Correct.
So theoretically, in a perfect world, you could tie into that, assuming you're allowed to keep it there, you could tie into it and slowly drain into it and leave things the way they are?
correct, from an engineering standpoint, correct, absolutely.
Code simply, yeah.
All right, so this begs the question, what can we do and what sequencing, what are the issues, putting aside that there are 31 of them here, what is the relative magnitude of
Yeah,
these?
okay.
What stops?
Let's come back to
Yeah.
that, sure. Keep going, we're beating a dead horse here.
No,
We'll co-
but what does this board do now, all right? That's really what I'm getting to, because it's getting near 8 o'clock. We got a football draft to get to.
Right, but let's just flip through.
And
it.
we gotta move, yeah, we
So,
have to make a
Let's
determination.
just, so, we know about number one, we could talk about that all night. Number two is more about rainfall amount and what he used to calculate, is that right? Number two, rainfall is updated, so that's a okay,
Yeah, that was
right?
just updating for the 100-year
So
storm.
that's been done, okay. Number three, okay. Number four, okay. Number five, what's number five? Overhang garage use, that can't be a big problem, right?
Yeah, it looks like it complies. It can extend 4 feet. So maybe if you could just dimension that on the architectural plans, but that looks like it's okay.
Cool. Number six, number six just seems like a comment, right? Oh, it was satisfied, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's satisfied, 7
This
satisfied.
void ratio thing was satisfied, eight. Were we pointing out that we're just,
8 was just a request.
oh, you're in water.
If a sump pump were to be installed, obviously, we know about the water issues on the site. We just asked that it be conveyed to a separate system, just because it's difficult to account for the amount of water that would be going into the detention system, that we know exactly how much water is going into.
Oh, you're saying, so when you drain the basement, you want to know where it goes, and it should be designed to accept that amount of water in the design of that system. So that's a known, right?
Yeah, that,
What else? The void calculation, that seems way too complicated, but you guys probably can figure that out, right?
yeah, that'll be vetted out in the calculations.
I don't need to know about that,
No.
right? Number 10, tags on number 9, so that's okay. Number 11, pretreatment, is that standard? Do we have to talk about pretreatment?
That's standard. That could actually probably be eliminated now that it's a detention system. The point of the pretreatment is to collect that first flow and collect all the fines and whatnot to clog up a system, but we don't have to worry about that because it's a detention system.
Right,
So
but
that could be eliminated.
If that were the only problem, we would say, okay, just make that a condition. Number 12, pipe inverts.
is asking for
don't
more
really
detail on
care.
the-
12, 13, cut and fill, seems like everything else is satisfied. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
19
Great.
is just a little bit more detail.
So that's not a big deal, that
No.
gets probably. Utilities. This is,
Again, just more detail on 20.
oh, on 20, okay. And what's 21?
21.
And 21 is the issue, right?
That's
the
about the
pipe
neighbors,
issue.
yep.
Okay, cool. Oh my gosh. You gotta stop writing such long memos here. So this is, 21 is one of the two issues, right?
Yep.
Cool.
And 22 kind of just piggybacks on that.
Cool, retaining wall. Yeah, that's a detail, right?
Yep.
I mean, it should be shown correctly, it's not there.
Yeah, we'll need to see that on plans.
Perf drain, discharge. You wanna see how it's being discharged
Correct.
on our property. Oh, you're saying? if
How,
it's
just to make sure it's not going and would affect the
Jason.
neighboring properties.
Similar with, if it's a whetstone, you
Yeah,
wanna
there were
know.
2 types of walls shown.
Oh. Okay, but your main concern is where the weeps are going, right?
Correct.
Okay, that would be cool to see, but compared to the other problems, that's manageable, right?
Yeah,
because of
it's
the
very
size.
manageable.
The close proximity to high water shall be used. Is that an issue? Is 26 an issue about what we're supposed to be using here for?
No, not an issue. Again, that'll be vetted out in the calculations.
Okay. 27 is about if there's enough room to put everything in?
That's just, best engineering practice. It's required that any a detention or infiltration system be located 10 feet off a property line, 10 feet off a foundation of a house, just to protect it from any water intrusion.
Okay. 28 seems to be a
That's
drawing
just a
thing.
general.
Just show it, okay.
Yep.
Soil test, 29.
Again, that's about the groundwater.
Oh, right, this is about the big issue, right?
Correct.
Okay. 30. More about, this is just an observation, right?
Yep. Just
Okay.
about separation to the basement and the property line. And then 31 just touches on the outlet.
Okay. So it seems like, even though we'd love everything to be cleaned up, the gentleman's come back and we're trying to help him, but if there were no other issues, if those two issues were not even here, we'd say, all right, not perfect, but I'd say it's manageable, right? So now it's
Correct.
really just limited. So the gentleman said something, the applicant said something about new comments that you brought up and you just heard about today. Do you know what he's referring to?
I think it would be comments, it would start at 31, start at 22 to 31 are the new comments. Addressing the new location of the stormwater and the new details that were provided.
Oh, right. 22 to 31. You said 22 to 31?
Correct.
Oh, and we just okayed most of them, right?
Yep.
Like, okay, so that's not holding things up. It's really about 22, right?
21.
About 22, and then just about the stormwater calculation.
Yeah, okay, so even though there are new comments that you brought up, none of them are,
It all piggybacks on, yeah. it's-
Could've been
it's-
manageable, right.
It's those two issues.
okay. So now we know that the problem is what it's limited to, just those things. So,
Correct.
Gee. So I think you said if you were to be given hydrological routing that was satisfactory, this issue all goes away.
It all goes away, correct.
Okay, so it's reasonable to say, can you please provide that to us so we can make a reasonable assessment of the condition?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. If it doesn't, what's Plan B? Like, do we have to discuss that, or do you want to see the numbers first before we discuss Plan B?
Would love to see the numbers first before we discuss Plan B.
Seems like a reasonable request, right? Is there an option, okay, so that takes care of the water. What about the pipes? Like, can we just leave them, even though if we can get everything to work the way the way he's proposing and you're approving, can we just leave that condition traversing his property and not do anything? I mean, it's not ideal. Could we just
It's
show him on
not
the
ideal.
drawings?
I don't know that. I'd have to
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was also asking. So if you, maybe you're not overcompensating at 2,500 feet, but that's safe enough to say if you're assuming 2,500 feet
Yes.
and slowly getting the water into that existing system, which is, somebody obviously did something, nefarious many years ago, but it's there. So like if they could overcompensate for the amount of water that they'd get because of the impervious surface at 2,500 and slowly get into that storm drain, then it should, you'd leave the status quo, and it takes away the neighbors complaining about anything, because you could prove
Yes.
it's
and
going to handle it the same way. Like,
If the numbers jive,
yeah,
you can't argue with numbers. That's a good thing about engineering.
yeah. I mean, I feel like that also satisfies the neighbors' complaints, because you could say,
not
I mean, maybe not improving, but there's not going to be any
Not-
change to it.
Yes, we're not
But-
harming.
Your comment about the comment about the pipe in 21 or wherever it was is really, please just show it, right?
Yes.
It wasn't do something about it, just show it on plans.
Well, we would like to see some sort of,
along-
at
I'm
least
sorry?
intent of resolution. It doesn't need to be final, but just a plan. A plan for resolution with those
Oh, of those pipes, of not leaving them? You're saying you
I
got,
could talk to, I'll be happy to talk to my boss about that.
is that an option?
Well, I think, showing the pipe at least, I think should be a minimum. Perhaps understanding what a potential resolution might be if it doesn't stay is relevant because it may affect all of these other determinations that we're talking about. So, it's not that you would be directing what the solution is, but just understanding the consequences of a variety of the solutions. Does it stay, and what are the consequences of that? If it's removed in its entirety, what are the consequences of that? How does it change the stormwater calculations we're talking about?
So you're saying that we should address Plan B, as I said, now, and at least put it as part of the condition?
So that we can understand, if that pipe is to be removed,
What you would have to do?
what you'd have to do if this is going to be
Yeah.
adequate in that
You'd have to
circumstance.
collect it, connect it to the stormwater, right?
For 3 neighbors, though.
Well, I guess
right.
that those neighbors would have to figure out their own solutions, but that could change the whole dynamic, as I'm understanding it, of the entire neighborhood, and it could change the whole dynamic on this property.
Correct.
Like a can of worms, isn't it?
Yes.
But can you connect to the storm, who's going to pay for that?
That's the
Yeah, that's the real issue.
big
right?
issue, yeah. Yeah, I think if it didn't have a significant effect, the town could simply approve it, that's fine, but it comes with a cost, I'm sure.
Well, it's certainly not this applicant, right? It's not as,
Well, to the extent if this applicant were to tie into that system and benefit from it, which might alleviate some of the problems that we've been talking about for the last half hour, then yes, maybe, they would be expected to pay their fair share. But
That is a private agreement and private resolution to that issue, but what we're talking about is how it should be shown on the plan and what
Yeah.
impact it has for the overall development, not necessarily directing those kind of private negotiating matters.
Correct.
so just one more question. So if you were to pursue 3 neighbors, figure out what to do with this water, put a pipe in, put it there, is that something you've done before? How do they come to a common agreement as to how to address this?
I have not personally done that before.
You need all sorts of
I'm
lawyers
sure it
for
can
that.
be quite complicated.
Yeah. We have counsel here. Would that be difficult?
It depends on if everybody's willing and has a solution that benefits everyone. It could be complicated or it could be straightforward. You don't really know until you start to really dig
Well, I'm
into the
pretty
information.
confident it would be complicated, very complicated, given what we've heard on this application so far.
Can I just chime in on that?
Yeah,
Yes,
please. Thank you.
Very much, Rick. As a municipal engineer, I've been involved with SSES sanitary sewer evaluation study and the implications of making various repairs. In the old days, a lot of homes, maybe one of you guys have one, have with the driveways under the house. 9 out of 10 of those driveways that go under the home has a drain that's connected to the sanitary sewer. A lot of these conditions have been investigated through a variety of means: smoke testing, dye testing, and it's a county-wide program, and it's been going on for the last 20-some-odd years. And every municipality, including Eastchester, has an obligation to make the residents correct these problems. It's not there's no grandfathering of these issues. So, to that effect, to answer the question about the complication of having a private easement or a private solution, I have been involved in those, and the hammer is the most important part of it. Once there's a notice of violation and a notice to cure the defect, then there's the impetus, we have to do something. So if you leave a choice, and that's why I wasn't too comfortable with the conversation you guys were having about possibly letting it stay, the reason why I brought it up because A, I investigated it, B, I found it, and C, as an engineer, I know that it's not legal. So I can't make believe I didn't see it. It doesn't work that way for me. So that has to be addressed. So the town has to be a party to ensuring that that is eliminated. Once that happens, there's going to be a cry of what do we do? So if you look at the proximity of work from the beginning point of where that, what's being serviced by that pipe, which is at the very end of our property and 36, The majority of the work is through our two properties, 3032, which I indicated before, we're proposing to put the pipe in anyway, in anticipation, because that is going to happen. There's no, we can't fool ourselves about it. So, and then it's a question of the neighbor who's been here before. He has to, he's going to be the holdout, because he has to grant permission for that pipe to continue through his property. But if he is in, if his property is currently flowing into that illicit discharge point, he would be benefiting from having a legal discharge. So you don't get to hang your hat on something that's 100 years old. It's just not the way it works. So again, because it's going to take a time to do that, and this project, we could commit, I'll show it on a plan, that in future consideration of a drain easement, which has nothing to do with the town, it would be private, we would show a pipe going through, traversing, that would ultimately make it easier to pick up from the point of beginning, and then obviously beyond. So that's all I can do. I don't have the ability as a property owner's client to go after and start strongholding or suggesting to neighbors they have to do certain things. The administrative arm of the town is the one that's going to get action, not us. We're nobody. So I hope that answers the question.
Can I ask you, if you are proposing a legal storm pipe for 30 and 32, just because I'm ignorant to it, like, how does that, if the neighbors don't agree to it or don't tie into it, how does it come from 30 and 32 to the main storm pipe?
It doesn't. It'll continue to flood the backyards like it does today.
Okay.
However, what we do recognize is that there are currently that system, that illicit, I call it illicit, not illegal, that illicit system is providing a benefit. It's not supposed to be there.
Right.
So the benefit would be duplicated and improved, because from a 6-inch pipe, we'd probably put a 12 or a 16 or an 18-inch pipe. We put a bigger pipe to handle greater flow. So this so-called private easement will have a benefit to more than just the 2 or 3 properties. It would be, it would be greater. We can't change the topography of our land to disallow natural occurring water from flowing onto it. So we have no proposal to do that. While people sometimes do that, we have to accept, because that's nature. So the natural topography of the land will remain in the backyard. The front, it doesn't matter, because that's not the collection point. So we would, and then once the main line pipe is installed, there are attributes that can be added to it. For example, additional pipes. We can have additional easements from the neighbors to the rear tying into it. So it all depends, how things evolve. But it wasn't my job to go tell the neighbors they had a problem.
So playing devil's advocate, if you install that main line and it drains out into the neighbor's yard
it would be capped at both ends currently.
and sit in there.
We would just be there because we wouldn't want to dig up the backyard twice.
Got it.
Measure twice, cut once type of thing. So in anticipation of the likelihood of that pipe being installed, we would be proactive and put it in there. It's pennies on the dollar at this point in time.
Okay.
So the only comment that I do, everything that Mr. Bolander said was, I'm fine with, I got no issues with it at all. But that very last sentence on item number 31, can we just strike that? It's a standalone sentence. No, I mean, that got my blood boiling a little bit.
Yeah, if shown a better alternative than what we kind of summarized in that last sentence, we're all for it. And I apologize if that, kind of came off as directing, okay, you have to do this. That was not our intent. We're open for anything as long as, like I said, as long as the numbers jive, that's fine with us.
So you want your calculation, you should look at the calculation and see if we could just make this all go away. If not, you're proposing to put a pipe in later for any future solution to this issue.
It sounds like that would be a solution.
Is that reasonable?
And then what happens in the interim if the pipe currently there has to be removed, but there's no subsequent solution? What happens to the water and how does that affect the system? That's kind of the open
Yeah, that's
question.
really what it comes down to. We don't know. We don't know
Right.
what's going to happen with that water.
I also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was also going to say, because there was someone on this application that appeared, one of the adjacent property owners, who was concerned about, and again, it was a very, in my opinion, a very unrealistic concern, because from his perspective, he was enjoying the benefit, or his property was being drained somehow, he thought, into this system. But if this system, now that it is discovered, has to come out or has to be taken away, I don't know if the building department has gone out there, because unless there is an easement, once that comes out, it's great that while they're constructing this property, they're gonna put this pipe in because it's cheaper to do while they're excavating and doing all of these things, unless the adjacent landowners know that something's going to happen with that pipe because they're going to lose whatever is there now. I really think the building department has to take a position about that.
Yeah, the highway department would be the department enforcing the illicit connection if that exists. I think the question for us is really more, how do you account for that? Do you have to, would it not change the conditions very much? I just don't know the answer to that, but I think that's the question. If the system is removed entirely, how does that affect everything that we've been talking about?
Yeah, are we allowed to consider this application somewhat in a vacuum? Or do we have to account for this discovery?
To a certain degree, I think this is a situation, this is a condition that is not something that can be ignored, and it's going to have to be addressed no matter what. I think your actions should anticipate what is going to happen or what the future would hold for those adjoining landowners. And again, I think it's going to come down to ultimately cost. If they put in the pipe on the property that they are excavating now, and then the landowners next door are going to have significant drainage problems unless they work with this applicant to bring that water to the, is it storm or sanitary? Storm system. It really, putting the pipe there may save money because they're working on it now, but it's got to go somewhere. I mean, and you have a potential violation that needs to be addressed.
Which is something that we could look into before the next meeting. As to the consequences of removing the pipe on the other properties, the consequence of just removing the pipe, that's an issue for those properties to evaluate. The question for this applicant is, how does that removal affect the system that they'd have to design for this application?
Because this applicant's property is not in violation.
Right.
The pipe runs across the property that is part of a violation, but the applicant itself is not in violation of anything.
True,
So
but there could be
it's-
consequences to removing it that
Yes,
they might
I
have to account
understand.
for.
Yeah.
That's all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So this isn't really just a highway department problem, it's a legal problem where all three properties have to come together and come up with a solution? Is that,
Yes, either collectively or individually.
so how do you,
But I think that the highway department would ignite that process, because the adjoining landowners need to know that it's not like this is something that can be ignored. It's there, it's a violation, it has to be addressed.
that's what I'm asking, is that the highway department's jurisdiction to bring everyone together and come to a resolution?
I thought it was building, but I guess she's right. It would be the highway department, either one of those.
It's not the applicant's issue, it's the highway department's issue, to figure out how to resolve this.
Well, I mean, it impacts all three.
Yeah, no, I understand, but
Everybody will have a piece in the resolution if it is. Are we certain that it is an illicit connection to the sanitary sewer? I think that was an open question the last time we were here, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, so when we were digging to try to locate the neighbor's pipe, we found this pipe, and it's at the very end, the very back of the pipe,
Right,
very back of the property next to the chain link fence.
Right.
We uncovered it. It was relatively shallow, clay, 6-inch clay pipe. Pipe was clean. We introduced water to it, and we walked around the corner, opened up the sanitary sewer manhole, and saw the water flowing. And in addition to that, I used dry grass as confetti, and I put it at the point of the break and waited a couple of minutes, and that stream of dry grass confetti made its way to the sanitary sewer. That's a rudimentary way of identifying that there is a direct connection. The intermediary points that there might be other connections, I don't know, because as suggested by Mr. Bolander's memo, it should be televised and inspected. But to the point as to what enforcement arm is available, it starts with, in my experience, it's a municipal law issue that has to then get conveyed to the to either building or highway. But because of technical nature, it may involve outside consulting as well. I'm not sure whether the town of Eastchester has already started this program. I mean, it's kind of been around for a long time, and I've been engaged with the town of Harrison, town and village of Scarsdale, Larchmont, so I've been doing a lot of this for a number of years. So we may not have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe it's just a question of speaking to or finding out if the town already has done some of this stuff
I
already.
don't think you'd have to open up a can of worms in the whole town. Let's just limit it to this property. Okay.
They asked me to investigate. Here I am, bearing fruit.
So, is it reasonable to say that the condition we're in is not this applicant's fault or anything? Do you think it's reasonable to say, let them continue, this has to be resolved, but we can't hold them up while we try and resolve this with the highway department?
I mean, I guess the question becomes, do you feel like you have enough certainty with the plan, and could there be plan changes that might be required if it's determined that the pipe has to be removed and there's no resolution, and now there's no pipe, and each property is obligated to manage their own stormwater, and that, we would have to rely on our consultant's advice as to whether the plan is in sufficient shape such that it could handle either scenario with a pipe there or not, or if there is potential for the plan to change if the pipe is removed and there's no piped solution.
And the plans for this applicant wouldn't change because of what's going on the other properties. It would have to get taken care of on their properties. It wouldn't affect the stormwater
But that
design.
includes the more specific calculations, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, if we're viewing it in a vacuum,
Right.
what Noel just said isn't really going to matter, but we've also sort of agreed we're not viewing everything in a vacuum, so I'm at a bit of a loss here. As to,
Would the retention proposed be adequate, whether that pipe is there or not?
Yes, and they would show
Yes.
that in the calculations.
And that would bear out in the calculations. What we really need to know is if the calculations support this particular design.
That's it. That's really what it comes down to. The illicit connections in the pipes, I think that can be handled.
Kind of just kicking the can down the road, which I have no problem with. Mm-hmm. If you can come up with calculations that show everything's okay, you're golden.
And we're comfortable with that.
Okay, you gotta work some magic then. Yes, sir. I mean, it seems reasonable that we could go that. All these
Sure.
other stuff is sort of minor. Come back next month, give something to him, show everything's okay, and we just move on.
I
Do you
concur.
still have to show the pipe?
I think if you're going to install it in any circumstance, whether you connect it or not, it should be shown on the site plan if it's there.
Correct.
Just
Are you okay
at
with
least to
that?
give somebody in the future notice that it's there.
Yeah, I mean, you're not taking responsibility. This is someone else's pipe. I'm just showing so you know it's there, right? Put a bunch of words there. Yeah.
Exemplifies the commentary.
So you're not liable, but you are pointing out that it's there.
Be capped on both ends too, so there'll be no introduction of water. It won't be doing anything while it's sitting in the ground. There's no function of that pipe.
No, I'm talking about the existing pipe, not the new
Oh,
pipe.
that's just gonna be identified as a dotted line.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, isn't it? Just identify.
Yeah, I already show that as a dotted line.
Yeah, or if a new pipe is proposed, I mean, whatever is going to be there in the long term should be shown on the site plan so that anybody looking in the future understands what the condition is.
But even though we're not going to know what that is by the time he has to finish his drawings, are we? The new future pipe that may be needed, should we have to?
Yeah, I think you can show its approximate location. Would a new pipe generally fall in the same location as the existing? No.
The existing 6-inch pipe is right by the side of the garage, and it runs this way. And there's a sewer manhole here. That's why I took the liberty of showing. This is the pipe that's going into, this red line is the connection pipe. So I'll enhance that. The way to go is this way, right through here. See that opening between the house and the garage at 24? So right through here, and it's a perfect line from where the existing structure is. This is the point of, when I talk about point of beginning, where does the pipe start? The pipe starts here. So rather than going this way, which there's no easements for any of this pipe to be there in the first place, it would go this way. And there's a catch basin right here on the street.
That's the future storm.
That would be the future.
Ideal.
We would have a pipe that would go here, because it's the only logical place for it to go. We would have it ready to go. And it would be based upon the invert elevation of this inlet that's out here. So it's not an arbitrary location. It'll be specifically put in the ground.
So can you size that for future use, should we go in that direction?
Well, you know, it would be nice if it was only serving the property. It's actually serving
We'll just over
a pretty
size
large
it.
part
Just
of
make
the
it big
neighborhood.
enough then.
You know, we're probably going to, most pipes, storm drain pipes are in the 12 to 15-inch diameter, so we'd probably be in that range. So it'll be a larger, from 6, it'll probably be at least a 12. If we have room for a 15, we would put a 15 in as well.
Okay.
That's when we, you know,
Yeah.
have to.
I
put our
think it would
heads
make
together.
sense to at least show that potential location and show the existing
Yeah.
pipe if it's there and indicate that it could be
Again,
removed in the future,
That
but just show
pipe is not for our
accurately.
benefit. 'Cause
I know,
we're
but if it's
desi-
on the site,
What would be really nice is that if we knew that was going to actually happen, I would take the benefit of it and design with an overflow to it. I can't even enjoy the benefit of that pipe being there at some future time because I'm designing the system to meet the requirements of your
But
consultant
you
today.
can wait for us to figure that out.
I'm not going to wait for you guys to figure that out, no.
I think you,
That's why.
if you don't mind, just put something in
It's
there.
a
for
catch-22
future.
for all of us.
So, Mr. Bollender, is this a good approach? I believe so, yes. Yeah, okay, so we'll get the calculations, look at those. If everything's okay, we're done. But nonetheless, we're going to ask him to show existing and future on his plan. Install future, show existing now. Does that make sense? And all the other stuff we went through, you guys play with that? Okay, cool. We're good?
At this point, procedurally, I think it makes sense if you both want to coordinate together before making a formal submission back to the planning board and have that addressed and then resubmit for the planning board's review. I think that makes sense procedurally.
We don't need to involve the highway in this yet, do we?
I think it's probably a better idea to include the highway department sooner rather than later.
That's, okay, then I guess that's what we do. All right, thank you. Oh, hold it, is this public hearing?
And just for the record, the
Yes.
highway department is aware of that pipe.
Oh, they are?
They are aware, yes.
Oh, so there's no mystery. Okay, cool. Are we a public hearing here?
Yes.
This was so much fun, right? Are we asking for comments from the public?
Yes, this is an open public
Yes.
hearing.
Okay, so this is an open public hearing about this pipe and this application. If there's any comments from the public, now's the time to comment on application 24-41, 30 and 32 Locust Avenue. No? Okay, good. So then the public, I make a motion to leave open the public hearing on this application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, guys. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks.
John, rescue us. The next application is going to be a quick one. 25-10, 11 Maple Avenue. Have a good night. Oh.
Said it's going to be a quick one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought John was doing it. John was with the one that's just here, sorry. All right, well, this is going to be a quick one for you then.
Well, it doesn't look like there's going to be an overwhelming commentary from the audience. Doesn't look like there's going to be much commentary from the audience, but,
I don't think so.
well, they're
Good
up to
evening,
pick number 2.
Mr. Chairman and Planning Board, I'm Anthony DiGiuseppe. I'm an architect, and I'm the applicant and representing Ronnie Moog, which is the owner. So this is for a site plan approval for an existing property that was non-conforming for side yards and for the parking. And it was approved, the variance was approved by the Board of Standards and Appeals. Basically, the house is in the existing location. We're not changing the footprint of the house at all. We're making this from a 2-family to a 3-family. So it's 3 stories existing, and it will remain 3 stories.
Just, if you could just please use the microphone if you're going to talk by the podium.
So I believe we've submitted a proposed site plan which has the location of the existing landscaping, has existing pavers that are located and delineated by the graphics, and the existing building line, and it shows the proposed roof line, which extends out on the front and the rear, just as an overhang. The Zoning Board's Appeals, which is the same plan, we proposed 3 parking spaces. They are labeled as to what the sizes are. We had a space for a smaller car as well, but we could take that off because it wasn't required by the zoning and planning. They said that the 3 spots were sufficient. There is an existing shed, there's a walkway, pavers, and all of the existing landscaping is in place and hasn't changed and will not change on the plan itself. And I believe we have we did the zoning calculations. The impervious surface coverage is the same. The amount is here, the site coverage is here, the total site area is on the notes here. The setback charts are here on the drawing itself, showing what the required yards are, setbacks are, and what the existing and proposed setbacks are, which have been approved by planning and zoning. Any questions?
By zoning, not planning.
By Board of Appeals, zoning Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think what you're showing might be different than what's in the submission
No, I
package.
think you might be looking at the existing site plan. This was the same ones that were presented before.
The ones in this packet don't have the parking dimension, they don't have the zoning
It doesn't
compliance
have what?
table.
The size?
Yeah, it doesn't have the size.
It says 9 by 18, 9 by 18, 9 by 18 on the proposed site plan. On the existing site plan,
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
it doesn't have the size of the parking.
Yeah,
So, but that's an existing, so this, I mean, this is the proposed one that we're,
yeah, do you wanna, this is what we have in our submission packet. It just looks different than what we're presenting slightly. There's no zoning compliance table, and it's, so I just wanna
Oh,
make
I'm
sure that
sorry.
you understand, that what you're presenting is what we have.
Oh,
or-
that has the tables on it that you're requesting?
Yeah.
yeah, it has the tables here.
Oh, okay. Because we were going to ask you to add those before you go to the ARB.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
they're
you
not
mentioned
within
that
this-
earlier, and I was confused.
Yeah, because they're not in the, on the proposed site plan that was in the submission set. And maybe this is just an earlier iteration that somehow made it into the submission
So,
set.
oh, yeah,
That one was intended.
Oh, I'm not, I don't know how that happened. It might be by the printer.
Is that T01?
this
Excuse me?
doesn't have.
Is that T001 that you have up there?
Excuse, I didn't hear what you
What
The
drawing number is that?
T002, that one
that's
says, yeah.
This is T002, right.
Yeah, it's different than what I have too.
It's different than what is posted on the website.
Yes, different, this one, I think, just appears to be a little bit more detailed than what was included and posted.
Okay, but this was the one that was submitted to zoning and Board of Appeals.
Right, that's why it was a little surprising to see this one in this set.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it may have been just a mistake on the printer. When they printed everything, they must have missed it.
Okay. So,
I mean, I'd be willing to leave this. I mean,
well, that's the one that should be submitted, right?
Yeah.
To the ARB. Right, so we were just going to ask you to clean up the drawings, include the checklist, include all the zoning tables and building height and coverage, and do you have a description of pervious surfaces and all that
yes, I
stuff?
have that right here.
That's all there.
Yeah, maybe I should bring this over.
Actually, Gary can zoom in on it, right?
Oh, we can zoom on?
Yeah, he can zoom in on it if you just leave it there.
I have to double check this one.
Yeah, you want to go up a little, Gary,
The table?
to the table that's sort of
On
in the
the,
upper
right-hand
right-hand
side.
corner? Yeah,
There you
there
go.
we go. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, did we increase impervious, or it stays the same?
Same.
Same, got it.
It's already paved asphalt.
That portion is on this, the version that we have, those notes about impervious surface, but I guess there's no change in the impervious surface.
No, there's no
That's-
change
okay.
at all.
Is there, are there street elevations, or are there any elevations, or?
Elevations? Sure, yeah. This is the north elevation.
Do you have ridge heights there, or
Yes, the height's there. There are heights on the frontal elevation. It's on the back of this. This one has all the heights.
okay, so none of them need variances or anything?
No, no.
Yeah, and just tell me, this is being converted from a two-family to a three-family?
Yes,
How is that being done? Is there one family per floor?
it's family per floor, exactly. There was a duplex there before. There was a ground floor apartment, and then there was a duplex from the second and third floor. So we're building out completely. We're set back in the front on the third floor, and also on the back, it was set back about 4 feet. In the front, about 12 feet. So we're expanding that so that it boxes out the building on the site itself. So from the same door on the side, you now come in and you can go straight into the second floor apartment, and there's a vestibule there that goes with the existing staircase so that you can go to the third floor. And that has 2 bedrooms. The second floor has 1 bedroom, and the ground floor has 1 bedroom.
Okay.
Are there any change in materials, or?
Yes.
It is?
Yes. It has vinyl siding on the house right now.
Right.
So that we're putting in, we're going to use a board and batten system, and it's going to be painted with like a charcoal color. And there'll be a metal roof that will be versus the asphalt shingles.
Do you have any samples?
Sure.
Just a note for the Architectural Review Board, they'll want the materials labeled on the elevations and in a schedule on the elevations. That's what they like to see. There's a checklist on the ARB application form, but they'll want all of the materials labeled, cut sheets for all the light
Right.
fixtures.
As well as a rendering?
Yeah, so this is an example of the board and batten, the color with the lighter roof. It's with this gray, which is the panel lock system. And the Benjamin Moore color, this charcoal color, is going to be painted onto the board and batten.
In that color? The dark color?
This is the color here.
Oh, that's the board.
It's a historical color.
Sure.
Aren't all colors historical?
Excuse me?
Just a
Right,
bad-
so I
bad
would
joke.
think it would be nice if we saw a rendering also of what it's going to look like, but of the whole building. Has the whole building been rendered?
What I did a existing of what that looked like, and then what the new is. So that's the rear of the building. And this is the existing building here. So this is where the setback is.
Uh-huh.
And so we're bringing that forward. And so that's what you see here is the board and batten with the new entryway here, which is now a double door. And there will be the door for the ground floor apartment. There's 2 doors. One is in the rear and one is in the front. So we taking out the one in the front, so this way you don't come right from the driveway with headlights into the door, and it has more privacy around the back. There's already a walkway there. And then we're closing that we're making that door that's in the front and opening to the bedroom. So that would be a window there. And also we're providing more light and air to the first floor apartment because it had these small basement windows. And it really did make sense because the windows are about 6 feet off the ground. So they're not below grade. So we're putting in larger windows there so that apartment has more light and air and has views of the garden as well. This is the configuration of the roof. So you have, it's more of a tied, complete roof that is with the metal standing seam roof.
So I think the sketch that you provide, it's very nice, but I don't really get the colors. I have to look at that and the colors at the same time to understand what it's going to look like. Like that elevation,
This one?
Yeah, good job, like it. I have to look at that and look at the colors at the same time to understand what that's going to look like and the colors we're proposing.
The reason why I did it like this was because if I were to do it in the charcoal, you wouldn't see any of the lines. I mean, it would just show some shadow. This way
Yeah.
it was a little more
That's fine.
indicative.
If there's an intent there, fine. But maybe the ARB is a better understanding it than I am. If you were to put up the colors now next to that, we could look at them side by side, maybe put them on the same sheet so you can sort of understand the colors along with your sketch.
I could do that.
I would just put it on there so I could go back and forth if you don't want to eliminate the vertical lines you've shown, then at least put the colors so you could see it
Uh-huh.
at the same time and understand what it looks like.
Right, I could do that.
Cool. Good.
That's more with the Architectural Review Board, or is
Yeah,
that?
before you bring it to them,
Yes.
I don't think you need to come back right
Yeah.
now. Are we okay with all the site plan things, Noel? Should we discuss that further?
Yeah, I think that I don't know that it requires any further discussion unless there's something in particular that you'd like to see. We do have a site plan checklist. I think you should probably just take a look through that and make sure you're showing everything that's on there.
Okay, I think we did, but you didn't seem to have that planned.
Right, so, just double check it. Do you have the elevations at the four corners of the building, all the surfaces labeled? If you have any topographical information, that should be added. The dimensions of the parking space, which I guess was on the plan that you presented, eliminating that half space as labeled as a space, the zoning compliance table, the calculations to support the coverage, and the building height. Those are the items on the checklist.
Uh-huh, okay. All right, I could put the elevations on all the elevations instead of just the frontal elevations, which I thought that's what was required.
The actual roof
Yeah.
bridge elevations?
Yeah, the roof elevations, the eaves, the heights.
Yeah, I mean, just put it on each one. Might as
On
well,
each one,
right?
okay.
Yeah, you might as well, just so we know. Do we need to see a streetscape here, guys? What do you think?
No, it's
pretty much standalone, right?
I
It's a
visited
lot
the
of
property.
mixed.
Yeah, it's right next to a large apartment building. It's on a slope.
Yeah, that's
So
not
I
gonna
don't know that it's really going to give you
No,
a whole lot more information.
Show me, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like, I looked at each one of the houses and took photos of them, and every house is different. You know, you have some Tudors, some frame houses with
Yeah.
porches in the front. You have the big, large apartment building next door with the parking lot, which is adjacent to this.
Yeah, it's something of a transitional zone, so.
So I'm willing to say, hey, let the gentleman clean up his plans before it goes to ARB and just let
Yeah.
him move forward, unless you guys
Yeah.
take exception and want him to fix everything and then come back and then go to ARB. Sounds
No,
like a no.
I prefer the former.
Okay, good. So this is a public hearing. Don't go anywhere.
Yep.
Let's just see if there's any comments from the public. So I make a motion to open the public hearing on this application, 25-10, 11 Maple Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No comments. So then I make a motion to close the public hearing on this.
You want to keep that open until you
Oh,
receive
yeah,
the
yeah,
feedback
sorry.
back from the ARB.
Yep, you're right. So then, what do I have to do? I had some of this in there. Maple.
So at this point, we could clean up the drawings and submit to ARB.
Correct.
Okay, we don't have to go back to, planning is after ARB again.
Yeah, I'm going to make
Yes.
a motion to refer you to the Architectural Review Board, and then you're good to go. So I make a motion to refer application 2510, 11 Maple, to the Architectural Review Board, and the public hearing is going to remain open.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, you're good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So the last procedural issue, guys, is a subdivision, which is an extension. Thank you. You're welcome. Good night. Is an extension to the Summit Street subdivision.
Wait, we have another application, don't we?
We
Oh,
do?
no, we.
No,
oh,
this
oh,
is the
no,
next
this is
one.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
No, that's, he just wants to clean up and go watch the
Yeah.
draft.
No, somehow I thought we had four.
Well, no, there's one more. It's just, this is just procedural. So
Okay.
it's the Summit Street subdivision. I think they just need an extension.
Right, so they received subdivision approval in October, haven't been able to comply with all the conditions. That approval is only good for 180 days, so they've requested a 90-day extension, which would bring the duration of the approval to July 23rd, 2025.
Good, so then I make a motion to extend the subdivision approval granted by this board on October 24th, 2024, for a period of 90 days, so that it will now expire if the plat is not signed by the planning board chairman on or before July 23rd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, the one thing was Sal's Pizzeria. We already commented on that, didn't we?
Right, so we noted the adjournment on that. You know, if you recall, a couple meetings ago, we had asked the applicant to submit an update of where it stands and if it intends to proceed. We got a letter saying that they were planning to make a substantive submission for this meeting, but we did not get a substantive submission for this meeting. I believe they are still working on it, so maybe you want to give that applicant until May, and then we can revisit this in May if you want to ask them again to make a substantive submission or consider a motion, a resolution to deny the application for failure to pursue it, you know, with the understanding that they can refile anytime they're ready to proceed.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So are they going to know that it's come in May or be denied? We tell them
Well,
that?
do you want to have them come in May or be denied? Or I was thinking maybe we can give them until May to submit, and then if they don't, again, we'll issue a letter at the May meeting, and then consider a resolution if there's no submission for June.
For June, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That will be 1 year since it would last appeared on the agenda.
Okay, then, so we don't need to talk about that. So then I just make a motion to adjourn this meeting, April 24th, 2025, Planning Board meeting. Next meeting is May 22nd, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.